Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road.
Hello and welcome to D23, the official Disney Fan Club's very special panel. We're here to celebrate 35 years of the Golden Girls. Get out the cheesecake because we're going to be taking a walk down memory lane, Richmond Street in Miami. I'm your host, Danielle Soto, and I am beyond delighted to be joined by these two gentlemen. They were producers on the Golden Girls, they were writers on the Golden Girls. I am so excited to get to hear about their experience working on the show. Please welcome Barry Fanaro and Mort Nathan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to get to chat with you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, nice to be here. We're excited.
Fantastic. So I'd love to start just by asking you to kind of tell our audience, how did you first get involved with the Golden Girls? Barry, we'll start with you.
Well, we were working at Wick Thomas Harris, a production company, doing a show called Benson. And we had been on that show for a couple of years. And then Tony and Paul came to us and said that they had a new show, which was called Hail to the Chief, that Susan Harris had just written. And it was about the first female president. And we did that for 13 episodes with Kathy and Terry. The four of us executive produced and wrote that show. And we loved it. We thought it was probably the best thing ever on TV. And Tony and Paul came to us after the 13 episodes and said, the show you love so much, they just canceled it. And we said, what are we going to do? They said, take a look at this. And they showed us the pilot for Golden Girls. And we go, we like this better. So we're glad that the other show got canceled. And that's how it happened. It was Terry and Kathy Grossman and Mort and myself. And then we brought in Winnie Hervey. And it was the five of us that did the show right from the beginning.
Wow, that's incredible. And a great lesson for Hollywood. Every disappointment might just be a redirection to something better.
It was,
Well, to begin with, we, if you remember, Barry, we were a little hesitant about whether or not we should take that job because we were in our mid-20s at the time, and the show was about, exploring the lives of women in their late 60s and 70s. And we thought, what do we know about this? Nothing. Is it going to work? Is it not? And we honestly weren't sure. But then, as Barry said, when we saw the pilot, it was really funny. And we thought, because it was so much fun, we'll figure out the rest of it.
Amazing. That's incredible. So you worked on season 1. You were there from the very beginning. Do you have a favorite episode that you had the opportunity to work on?
From
Whoever wants to jump in.
Go ahead.
I don't know. For me, I like them all. Things that stick out in my mind that were particularly fun was I liked the episode we did where Burt Reynolds was a guest star because it was just silly and fun, and the ladies were all just great. Hilariously funny. It played really well in front of a live audience.
Sophia around?
Oh, hi,
How about a little lunch?
Bert. Listen, if you're Brian, how about a big lunch?
Great.
My God, you're Mr. Burt Reynolds.
I hope so, otherwise I got the wrong underwear on. He's the roommate you told me about?
Yeah.
Which one's a slut?
That laugh went on a long, long time.
I also particularly like, Barry and I wrote a 2-part wedding episode, which was really fun.
Mom, what is going on here?
Afterglow.
Nice to see you again, Dorothy. You too, Mr. Weinstock. When did you get in?
And those two stick in my mind as special, but I don't have a favorite, that's for sure.
I would say there's a little bit of a story behind this one. It was the first one we wrote. It was called Rose the Prude. And it was the first script that was read at the table. And it was the first time we had met the ladies because Susan had done the pilot and then we were brought in. So we were at the table and they introduced everybody. This is this one, this was that. Okay, let's read the script. It's called Rose. And B. Arthur goes, hold on a second. Where are the writers? And they pointed to us. We look like a glee club from high school. And he goes, "Where's the expletive white hair?" Meaning these kids they're children. How are they going to write this show? So they go, "Listen, let's just read it." And B was right across from me. I'll never forget. She had a really sour look on her face. Like, I came out of retirement for this to be embarrassed.
Maybe it sounds strange, but without Charlie, I thought that part of my life was over. I never gave it a second thought.
Until now? Then I think you should go on the cruise. Honey, if the situation is right, you'll know it.
But I'm not sure I'm ready.
Oh, honey, I know what you're going through. The bottom line is, if you take a chance in life, sometimes good things happen, sometimes bad things happen. But honey, if you don't take a chance, nothing happens.
I'm gonna take a chance.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, I have to look in my closet. I don't even know what to wear with the first night on the ship.
A life jacket and a great big smile.
And it was just one of those quirks of fate. It worked out. You want to talk about a great Hollywood story, ending to a Hollywood story. They read the script. It worked. There were laughs all the way through. It had heart. And at the end of it, they closed the scripts, and B. Arthur went like that. And we were saved from being fired. We could have been fired on the spot, I think. But B gave us certification. Everybody laughed. And after that, we really just developed that relationship. We loved them. They loved us. It was a lot of respect going back and forth. It was really a kind of magical experience, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience.
Amazing. You know, those 4 actresses, they were all so different on the show from one another. I heard that Betty White has described them as 4 points on a compass, just so different. Was there anything that the women brought to the characters that was never actually written into the script? It was completely just something that they pulled out of their own ideas.
Well, the women were great. They were all obviously consummate actresses, and they were all absolutely nothing like the characters they portrayed. You know, Betty White, to start with, was a very smart, savvy, intelligent, woman, and B could be acerbic, but she came off tough on screen. She was the nicest woman, as Barry said, on the planet. You know, once she got your trust, there couldn't have been a sweeter person. And Rue was a consummate professional. She was married a lot, I will say that, and she did, she dated, so there was some similarity there. And Estelle, lovely comedian, wonderful actress, but she certainly wasn't the wise sage. You know, she liked to have fun. She was silly. She was extremely nice. She was not condescending or cutting at all in person. So there were nothing like the people that, we helped create, but they would always bring a very specific energy to make the characters feel truthful. Like we would experiment with things. Barry and I, we wrote a lot of stuff. There's a stuff with our name on it, but we went over every single one, the first 102 episodes, and we were constantly surprised about things that we would try, and we go, I don't know, will this sound real? Will this sound silly? And what they could all do is make it not only sound funny, but they made it sound honest. They made it sound truthful, and that was their gift. They were really, really talented performers as actors, not just comedians.
Wow, it's amazing. That was fantastic. Barry, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, just as it was sort of funny to me, Mort describes them perfectly. I love them all. Rue, weirdly enough, became, I think, in life more like Blanche as time went on. She, all of them kept their wardrobe, and we always went to benefits with them and fundraisers and so forth. And she would wear her outfit from the show, and she would walk in, and suddenly that voice would get all syrupy, and she became Blanche. And she, that character wasn't just sexy. She was confident. And I think that's what happened with Rue. She had always been a second banana on a show. She was on Maude in a guest star performing role. But once she came into her own and became a star on Golden Girls, I think she kind of became Blanche a little. Don't you think, Mort?
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you remember the story when she came back from lunch one day and the construction workers were giving her catcalls? Remember that?
There were a lot of the, what
Remember
happened?
that? She had come back from lunch one day, and I said to her, "Rue, how was lunch?" And she said, "Well, I was walking to get my lunch, and there were these young men, construction workers." And they started screaming at me. They started making these lewd remarks, these sexual remarks, and they even started being suggestive with their genitals. And they were really pretty outlandish as they saw me walk down the street saying all these weird, suggestive sexual things. And then she leans into me and she goes, "I loved it."
That was Rue.
Because she had fun, you know, when she created this character, this persona, and as Barry said, she lived it a little bit because people had such a good time when they'd see her on the street, she'd play it up a little bit.
Amazing. I share that in common with Rue McClanahan. I also hope to become more like Blanche through my own life.
We all did.
Yeah.
Good girl.
I think that everybody has the character that they relate most to. Some people are Dorothy, some people are Roses. I think we all kind of inside want to be Blanches.
Mhm. I get that.
Right. It's something to aspire to, for sure.
Right. So I thought it would be a fun idea if we took just a little break from the interview to try some Golden Girls trivia. Are you down for that?
Let's try it.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to ask a question, which I've hid inside this Golden Girls coloring book. And well, basically, I'll ask a question to Barry. If you don't know it, it'll go to Mort. And then we'll give one to Mort. If you don't know it, the question will go to Barry. But
Could you answer if neither one of us know?
Yeah. And I'm sure our viewers at home are going to crush this. So the first round that I have is just called The Show. That's the category. All the questions are just about the show itself. So question number 1 for Barry. How many seasons did the Golden Girls run for?
7?
That is correct. Well done. 1 point. Question number 2 goes to Mort. In the pilot script, one of the characters is described as being similar to the actress that ended up playing her. Which character was it?
Dorothy?
Correct. Well done. Yes, in the pilot script, Susan Harris described the part of Dorothy as being a B. Arthur type. Question number 3. The Golden Girls inspired 3 spin-off shows. Tell me one of them. Or all 3 if you know.
There was Golden Palace, I think. I don't know any other one.
That's correct. You only needed 1, so Golden Palace is correct. Question number 4. How many of the Golden Girls won Emmys for their work on the show?
I believe all 4.
That is correct. Well done. All 4 of the women won Emmys during their
The
run.
only other show to do that was...
Will and Grace and All in the Family.
There you go. You do know.
Thank you. Question number 5. This is the last one of the round. In the original audition, which actress was asked to read the part of Blanche?
Mort?
Betty White.
Betty White is correct. So initially they wanted Betty to play Rue's part and Rue to play Betty's part.
I want to play a game show about your life. But anyway, kind of fun.
You did amazing at a game show about your life.
We were there.
Do you think that the fact that they were ageless and you wrote them that way is the reason that new audiences keep finding this show year after year? It's 35 years later, and I still talk to parents who tell me that their 5-year-old kid loves the Golden Girls. And do you think that's sort of why it became that way?
I think so. I mean, they're everybody's mom, they're everybody's grandma, you know, and you recognize that. And because they're extremely funny and the scripts, you know, we didn't write them to be timeless. We just wrote them to get through the week because you just don't think that far ahead. But because of the combination of, you know, the talented people who worked on the show and their performances, this stuff has become timeless, you know, and I think because the characters that we all shape together are so honest, so familiar, so truthful, and so funny, that's why they resonate for years and years.
But it also, I think the show was based on the fact that, you know, your life isn't over at a certain point. It's just, it's changed. And I think a lot of people like the idea that, you know, you find a new family later in life, and it's just as important as your biological family. So all those things made it so universal. And the other thing I'd say is, the one thing I get a lot is, well, in fact, I'll tell a story. I was in Vietnam, and we were in a hotel, and the manager of the hotel came up to me and said, you know, are you enjoying your stay? Blah, blah, blah. Yes. Would you come see me tomorrow afternoon? My office is upstairs, whatever. So I said, yeah, sure. So I went upstairs, and he said, listen, I just wanted to tell you something. I grew up in North Carolina, and I was dropped off at my grandmother's house every Saturday night. She and I had nothing in common, but my parents wanted to go out to dinner or whatever, and I was dumped off at my grandparents'. And he said, the only thing we had in common was Golden Girls. We would sit down, we'd watch the show, we'd laugh. And he goes, I just want to thank you for that, because I have fond memories, even though we weren't close in other ways, we were close that way. And I've heard that a lot. And that, of course, you know, it sends chills up your spine when you hear that kind of thing 30, 35 years later.
Yeah, it's really touching. It's really touching to find out that you were part of building a closer relationship between two total strangers. You never knew you had this influence over their life. And what a great opportunity that he got to tell you that.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's really special. This is the question that I've most been looking forward to asking. During the early days, before you knew what a success the show was going to be, did you have any moment or any indication that made you go, wow, we have something very special on our hands? Was there an episode, a review, an interview, anything that just gave you an indication that this was going to be enormous?
I remember when the show got on the cover of TV Guide, we thought, wow, this is a lot bigger than we think it is. But it was a job. You know, we went there 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And when you work on a television show, as Barry said, 24, 25 episodes a year back then, it's an awful lot of work to do, So we just wanted to make it as good as we possibly could. And we were working within that bubble. And for us, it was almost like dinner theater. And it was an abstraction that it was such a big deal. But then suddenly it's on TV Guide. It's a cover of TV Guide, which was a big deal at the time. And then it started to be in the paper. And it still was an abstraction, but we started to slowly realize this is bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I clearly remember one incident, and as Mort said, to give it kind of the framework, we worked in an office. There were 4 or 5 of us in an office, and that was our world. You wrote in the office, you'd walk, 100 yards to the stage. There were the ladies. We'd see the run-throughs. We'd go back and we'd rewrite, and it was 6, 7 days a week, and that was our life. We just go home to go to sleep. Now, we knew it was a hit. We knew it was a really big hit, but I don't know. I think we were too busy to really take in, how big it was. So anyway, getting to my remembrance of this, it was in the 2nd year, and we were all in New York for some reason. It might have been upfronts or something. And I remember, I think you were with me, Mort, but if not, it was Kathy and Terry. Anyway, we were coming back from dinner, and we were on the Upper West Side, in the 60s. There where it's quiet, it's brownstones, tree-lined streets, and it's quiet. And we were walking along, and we heard laughter here, and then heard laughter there, and then we heard the show, and we turned to each other and said, it's really, New York was laughing. New York was laughing at the show. It was a Saturday night, the show was on, and we heard laughter coming from all these different windows, and it's like, yeah, now I understand. It's a big hit.
Yeah, we remember we went to England for the Queen Mum. It was her 90th birthday party, something like that. Yeah. So the Golden Girls were her big favorites. So there are all these international stars at the time who performed for this gala, and she wanted the Golden Girls to also do a sketch. So they decided it'd be great fun, and we all went to England, and they did a kind of revamped scene from the show that Barry and I rewrote especially for that performance. So it went great. But the thing that was weird is I remember I would see the ladies at breakfast, and we'd go to breakfast, or we'd go in and out of the hotel to go somewhere, and it was like the Beatles had landed. And when you live in Hollywood and you go to and from the studio in your car, people leave you alone. But as Barry said, you go somewhere else, and we're walking around London and people screaming, trying to touch these people, just so excited. And then you go, oh, wow. My little job, as we said, in our office with 6 people, is having international repercussions. And it's a weird feeling. It's a good feeling, but it's a weird feeling.
I'm glad it was a good, weird feeling.
Oh, it was fun. It was fun.
And Mort, you said in your answer that you tried to make the shows as good as possible. And I'm just here to tell you, you succeeded. This show has changed my life. It's changed so many people's lives. I'm part of this Golden Girls community, and it is still 35 years later, just the most beloved show. You all did a terrific job.
Well, it's very nice for you to say that.
I would add this to it. I know Mort agrees with me. We all would. And that was, we had so much respect for them. They were so good, so good. If you wrote something great, they would make it fantastic. If you wrote something okay, they'd make it good. They always made it better. And we had so much respect for them. If something didn't work at a table reading, a line didn't work, they didn't need to come to us. They didn't have to tell us, I don't like it. We knew it. And we would stay there all night to fix it, because we would not allow them to go out there and do anything except, something that we gave our best shot. Now, not everything worked. I think a lot of it did. But the reason it did is because we were all so dedicated to them. We really appreciate their talent and didn't.
Yeah, that's really very, very true. Including the executive producers, Paul Witt and Tony Thomas. They would sit with us at the table, and those guys didn't have to. They were more in an executive management position, and everybody just wanted to make it as good as it possibly could be, because these ladies were great. They were just hilariously funny, and you give them the right moment, they would, as we would say, they'd score with it. They'd hit it out of the park, and we just would stay as late as it took to just make it as good as it could be. And if it took 7 days, so be it.
And Paul and Tony would stretch out those rewrite nights. That they didn't have to be there, but we ended up staying till 2 a.m. And later on, Tony said to me, well, that was the funniest room in town. It was fun. We were doing hard work and we were staying up late, but everybody was funny. Everybody was trying hard, and it was, it was a fun time, and it was fun to be with each other, and they loved it.
From all the interviews I've heard with writers from the show, just like you all, they give so much credit and so much accolades to the 4 women. And then in the interviews that I see that were done with them, all they talk about is the writers.
Well, it was a love fest. It really, really was. As Barry told the story, there was that day, that first day of, what are they doing here? They're the writers, and it sticks in both of our minds clearly when B. Arthur looked at Barry and I and Winnie and goes, you're kidding me. Because we literally goes, nice to meet you. And she goes, you're kidding me. Yeah, because she was shocked that we were so young. But they so quickly learned to trust us, and we so quickly learned to depend on them as being such wonderful performers and interpretive in such a wonderful way with all our material. It was a love fest. And when we left after 4 years, you'd think we were going off to war. Everybody was so upset.
Yeah, and I think we were too young to know to be frightened, because I think we had every right to be scared, and they had every right to doubt us. And it just worked. It was like a chemical reaction, I think. And as we went on and on, they knew they could trust us, and we knew that they would make something, it was marginal. They could really make it work. So, it was a real, it sounds cliche to say, but it was true. It's true. It was a team effort. It was a family, no arguments, no drama. It was just a great working experience. We were so young, we learned later in our careers that it doesn't happen that often that way.
Yeah, it just sounds like the most amazing environment to work in.
Mm-hmm.
And you say the 4 ladies were ageless, but maybe being as young as you were, maybe there's a part of you all that was also ageless.
I've thought about this. I don't know if Mort has, if it was today, we would never have written that show. It just, first of all, it's wild even then that they picked us, because we, again, to say it again, we were young. But today, I don't think a male would have, been allowed to write that show. It's just a different time. That would have been filled, we had women writing it, Kathy Grossman and Winnie. We had other female writers. We always tried to do that, to hire them. But I don't think we would have gotten the shot because they would have said, well, how can you understand that? So I think a good writer, can put themselves in the place of anybody. And if it works, it works. So I'm just so thankful that I got that chance. It was the right time. It was the right show. We were the right writers. And, it worked.
This is a very inspiring conversation.
We're two very inspiring individuals.
You're not this inspiring. I'm sorry.
I've been trying to keep it together and be cool, but I had to break just then and just kind of fangirl out a little bit. Do you have a proudest moment from working on the Golden Girls? I mean, maybe one of your Emmys?
Well, there's a lot of proud moments, big ones and small ones. When we won the Emmy Award our first year there, that was an extraordinary thing because we weren't expecting it. We were excited to work on the show. And as you said earlier, when did we know that this show was a big deal? Well, we really knew it was a big deal when we were standing on national TV accepting awards. It just put it in a whole different perspective for us of our work was beloved across the globe. So that was a particularly meaningful moment, and we were lucky enough to win twice. So that was exciting. But it wasn't just the big moments, that we really genuinely liked these ladies, and we had so much fun working with them. It was kind of getting a master's class in comic timing, and it really helped us not just in terms of our career, but also in terms of how to understand how to better work with actors, how to better create more meaningful characters, and we had strong personal relationships. So all of that was equally as important as the professional accolades.
Well, you kind of said it, Danielle. For me, it was when Bea won her Emmy for Best Actress, and we just loved her so much and respected her so much. She was gifted, a great comedian and actress. But anyway, she accepted the award, and she thanked the five of us: Mort, Barry, Kathy, Terry, and Winnie. And it was like, well, that's just the coolest that she thinks so much of us and knows how hard we work. And
it was her moment. It wasn't our moment. It was her moment. And she really went out of her way to mention us all by name on national TV, it was really touching for us. That's true. And she did that more than once. She was at the Television Academy. The ladies were all very good about that, but she was the best to just go, we need to honor these people because they're our secret weapon.
Is it true that Betty used to talk to the audience throughout, the tapings?
Yeah, she did. I'm sorry, excuse me. She did. It was the only kind of friction at all on the show, and that was between Bea and Betty. Betty was a TV person. She was a really good actress, I think an underrated actress. She was amazing. But she also had done game shows and other sitcoms. She would do anything. She liked to perform, and she would perform to the audience. Bea was an animal of Broadway. That was, you came out, you stayed in character, you said your lines, you walked off, you got a drink, and you went home. But Betty would always prime it. If she dropped a line, she'd get up and she'd walk to the audience and make them laugh. And it sort of irritated Bea, not to the point where they were fight about it, but they both came from, they were two totally different people. And Bea just thought it wasn't, Broadway to go and, break character and go. The audience, of course, loved it because she is really funny off the cuff.
Can you talk a little bit about the character of Stan? And just, I think some of the most favorite episodes for some of the fans are the ones where Dorothy has to reunite with Stan.
Well, one of the wonderful things about doing a television show is it's a living, breathing organism. And you try to experiment, and then when something works, you can double down on it and expand upon it. Stan was a character we were going to try once. It was the great Herb Edelman, who was a wonderful character actor, did a lot of Broadway, a lot of Neil Simon stuff, really funny guy, and he worked well with B, and we tried him one time, and it worked great. It just worked great. You know, you believe that they used to be a couple. They both knew where to play the comedy. They knew where the jokes were. And because it worked out so well, he became a recurring character. You know, we used him a whole bunch of times because he brought stories, and that relationship felt real. It was funny, but it felt truthful, and they worked well together. And we didn't know that going in. That's something that we discovered. And that's the fun of doing a television show, is things that work are things that you can amplify and things that you can explore. And he was a great guy, wonderful guy, really funny, super professional. And off screen, he and B really liked each other. And that's another reason, you know, if she didn't have chemistry with an actor, they wouldn't have come back. But we all had a great time when Herb was there.
Amazing. Barry, do you have anything to add?
What's that?
Do you have anything to add about Stan?
No, I was just going to say, I remember it was Mort and my idea to cast Herb in that role because Mort and I went to film school together, and we were big comedy buffs. We loved Neil Simon, and you know, we loved Herb in The Odd Couple. And then weirdly, B's ex-husband, Gene Saks, had directed him. And so we didn't know that, but they had known each other.
Yeah. It was a small community.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, Mort and I tried to bring as many of those, you know, the Broadway character actors in as we could, because we just loved them so much. And a lot of those people did end up on the show.
In some of my Golden Girls fan groups, which makes me sound very cool, they talk about Dorothy and Stan, and some of the fans would have liked to seen them get back together at the end. I am not in that camp, but I was wondering how you all felt about that. Did Dorothy deserve to move on from Stan and find a new life with someone new, or do you think that could have been charming?
I don't think we ever even considered that. That was, you know, that relationship was right. And I think you filled in the blank that we never thought of. And it was like she needed to move on and have a happier life. But they, you know, they still loved each other, and, you know, they worked so great together. It was, you know, that was a Broadway play when the two of them were doing a scene together.
Yeah, but that relationship was over. It was, you know, it would have been against what the show was about when it was working at its best, which was being truthful. It certainly was funny, but the mistakes that they both made as a couple, more Stan than her, it was just time to move on. And if suddenly that became forgivable just to make it into kind of a Hallmark moment, that's stuff that we try to avoid, you know. And the network sometimes would pressure us gently, because we were a hit, to go make it sweeter, make it end happier, make all the rough ends fit together in a positive way. And it was still a half-hour sitcom. You know, people did get together, and they often were happily ever after at the end of things, but we would make an effort to not tie it up neatly, because that life isn't that neat. And the thing with Stan would have been a mistake, so we never did it.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't think that every episode ended perfectly happy and wrapped up. And something even my dad and I were talking about was, he said he thinks the show was a big success because it was relatable. Some of the stories we saw in there, people knew that was happening in their own lives.
Absolutely.
You know, we were looking for stories, and Mort said it before, you know, 7 episodes in, it's like, what are we going to come up with? Who are these people? They don't have that. And then we started thinking, you know, well, there's ex-lovers and ex-husbands, and there's daughters, and there's grandchildren. So, you know, they had a full life before, you know, we started with them, and we could draw on that life before the show, you know, started.
Yeah. A big part of the show was the cheesecake that they ate around that kitchen table. Was there a reason that they picked cheesecake, and how did that continue to be a staple all throughout all 7 seasons of The Golden Girls?
I forget why it started that way, because the funny thing of it was, this is real trivia, I didn't know this until late into the show, and that was that Bea hated cheesecake. So if you watch it carefully, you see her moving it around on the plate a lot, but you know, it's not that often that she puts it in her mouth. We didn't know. I don't know. Can you think of something more comforting, I guess is what it was. That's what that was all about. It was wake up in the middle of the night and eat some comfort food.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember specifically either, but I'm sure the conversation was, as Barry said, in the middle of the night, I want comfort food. The obvious choice is ice cream, just ice. That's what you go to, and we go. Once again, what's a little different? What's just eating cheesecake at 1 a.m. is stranger, is a little more decadent, and it just seemed, and it's indefinable why. It just seemed a little funnier.
For sure. I've heard from other writers for the show that when they were writing episodes, they threw in names from their past or restaurants from their childhood. Did you ever throw in anything to a script that was very personal to you, or like a little Easter egg shout out to anyone from your life?
We did it all the time. I mean, Sophia would tell those stories, picture it. So my father was Italian, and he was president of the Italian American Association down in Florida. So I said to him, can you send me the names of everybody in the Italian American Club? So everybody from Vero Beach, Florida that was Italian ended up in the Golden Girls, I think. So that was my little wink to everybody back home.
Yeah, as Barry said, we did it all the time. The women, I guess, they lived on Richmond Street. That's where my parents lived. So it was Richmond Street. That's where I grew up.
Mark Perper was a great friend of
Oh,
mine.
that's right. There was a B, I believe. Was,
really were the ones that we got the biggest kick out of doing that kind of stuff.
yeah. It would amuse Barry and me.
Mark Perper is from the episode where Jean comes to visit and is secretly a lesbian. That's also a fan favorite, won a bunch of Emmys.
You're much better at this than us. I wouldn't remember that in 100 years.
Anything to mention about that episode? Because I think that it was very memorable for the fans and important for the LGBT community.
I have a memory of that. It was, I forget the writer. It was an outside script. What was the name of the guy that wrote it? I've forgotten.
Jeff Duthiel.
Jeff Duthiel. So anyway, he was a friend of Winnie's. So Mort and I would keep on our desk ideas for shows. And honest to God, it's an obvious choice. A gay friend comes to and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, I've never known any personally, but isn't Danny Thomas one?
Not Lebanese, Blanche. Lesbian.
Lesbian. Lesbian. Lesbian.
And the script came in, and it was actually very good. It was a good script, and Mort and I rewrote it, and it got all this acclaim. And something I'm proud of, and I think Mort is too. We never took credit from an outside writer. A lot of shows would do that because that show was rewritten. And I'm proud of a lot of the stuff that's in there, but there was no taking away from Jeff Duthiel that he had come up with this idea, and there was a lot of funny stuff in it. And a lot of other shows would take credit from writers. And I think, again, this was part of us being young and on a hit show. We couldn't believe the luck we had. So we would just never take it from anybody else. We never did that. So that's my memory of the show. And I remember it's a really, really funny episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It also, as Barry said, it seems so organic to the television show because these were ladies who were very strong individuals and they were passionate about individual rights. And at the time, that was still a more controversial issue. It's still an issue. It still hasn't gone away. But at the time, to talk about, people who had different sexuality from, what they considered quote unquote normal was something the network was a little afraid about. And the ladies were delighted to tackle an issue that was sensitive, and they did it in a funny way and they did it a truthful way. And that's one of the reasons I think that some of these episodes that are, a bit more issue oriented still resonate today.
Yeah, I cannot hear the word Lebanese without thinking about lesbian.
Yeah, and then as Barry said, my God, the way she said that, people just laughed and laughed and laughed, which is all her, just, taking a smile and turning it into a big, big joke.
Yeah, I think it's a really well done episode.
Yes, Terry Hughes says that is his favorite episode. And I think it's a beautiful episode because it wasn't done stereotypically, and there were no jokes about Gene to poke fun at Gene. It was just the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
We'd never take a cheap shot there. That was verboten.
Yeah. There were also a lot of really touching moments throughout the series, including that episode with Gene. I believe it's called Isn't It Romantic from season 2. But there were a few moments that were really, really touching. I guess my question is, how did you find it to write through a vessel of comedy these moments of real tenderness?
Tell me our secret, Barry.
It came out of a tradition, I think, of, the Norman Lear shows. There is a lineage there, and you would tackle a real subject, and you would make it as funny as you can. But it's always best if in a comedy, if you can make somebody kind of feel something and choke up and also laugh, then it's working on all cylinders. To be just, if it's too serious, it's not going to be funny. And if it's just for laughs, which we often did, and sometimes those were funny shows, but the mix of the two, those are always the best shows.
Also, one of the executive producers, and when we first started our careers at the TV show Benson on with Thomas, we were still learning. We had a pretty quick learning curve, but we were trying to figure it all out. And when we would write heartfelt speeches, because as Barry said, you need a mixture. Comedy has drama, drama has comedy. If it's working, because there's got to be some level to it. Otherwise, if it's just all jokes, it feels like noise. It's not emotional. It's not real. So we would write these emotional speeches, and our boss, the executive producer at the time, Tony Thomas, would go, "Where's the funny part?" He goes, "It's fine to have the emotion." He goes, and he used to say, it was a show at the time, he goes, "This isn't a Quincy." He goes, "It's time to cut the treacle," he'd say. "It's time to remind us that this is still supposed to be fun." And what he was really saying was, there's a mixture here that you guys have got to get right. So we tried really hard to get that mixture right. And we had it down pretty well of heart and comedy. And that's why I think Tony and Paul gave us the opportunity to run the Golden Girls, even though we were so young.
And I remember it was right off the bat. Again, it was that first show we wrote. It was about Rose the Prude, about her going off on a cruise with somebody, and she felt like she was cheating on her husband, even though her husband had died years before. And it was at that table reading, and there was a speech, I don't know where, in the first act, I guess, that Betty had, explaining why she felt uncomfortable going away with this guy, and she choked up because it was, we knew what we were doing, in the sense that we knew that she had been married to Alan Ludden, and it was a great romance and all that. And we sort of wrote it with that feel. And Betty really, she understood it immediately and choked up. And, those women could really pull that stuff off. They were really, really good actresses. They could have been dramatic actresses.
I think that's what made the show so good, is that they really, really committed to these characters. And there was no winking at the camera. There was no nudge that they're being funny right now. They just did it so genuinely.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, if you're a good comic, you don't play the comedy, you play the truth. You play the honesty of it. And that's why people responded. These felt like your parents, your grandparents, people your favorite aunt. And the pain they played was real, in addition to the funny. And you respond not just to the funny, you respond to the pain. And it's that combination, I think, that made the show so successful.
This is another memory of the show to sort of amplify that. There was an episode where Sophia she had what they thought was a heart attack, and there was a hurricane outside, and they couldn't get her to the hospital and all that, and it looked like she might die. Well, during that week, Bee's mother actually passed away. Bee's mother lived with her for years and years, and she took care of her. And it just so happened that very week, her mother passed away. So we went to Bee and we said, not this week. Let's just, we'll put this one aside, and we'll do something else. And B said, no, I want to do this, because in the end, she told us later on that the speech she makes to Sophia about how she feels about her and all that, that was her talking to her mother. That was sort of completed that relationship. But, I always admired B so much to go like, no, the show goes on and I can find something in here that makes it, gives it a reason for me to do it. It was, it was really touching. That was B, she seemed like a toughie on the outside. She was, and she was all marshmallow inside.
I don't think I'll ever watch that episode the same way again.
It's
really,
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me and with our viewers.
Yeah, I'm glad I could, because it says everything, you need to know about B. Arthur. She was a class act.
Mm-hmm.
So one really unique thing about the Golden Girls that I think separates it from a lot of the television shows that were on during the same period or even ever is the amount of merchandise that has been created around the show. So I am currently surrounded by some of the merchandise. This is actually what my apartment looks like.
Okay. You live alone, I assume?
I do. How could you tell?
Just a guess.
Well, alone if you don't count the girls.
Okay.
I have 4 roommates. So I was wondering if there any piece of merchandise that you've seen, fly across the shelves that you're just like, I can't believe that exists in the form of a Golden Girls. Like the tiki cups that just came out recently. Did you see the tiki cups?
I kind of get all of them, and I pass them along to my daughters who are crazed about the show. But I get them from Tony Thomas. He sees all this stuff and he'll send it on to me. But my favorite is, I have it in our garden here at the house, and those are the Golden Girls Chia Pets that you have the steps down to the garden. So that's my favorite merch.
Amazing. I have that one right down here. Yes, I'm Sophia.
With no chia. You have to put the chia on it.
The chia freaks me out for some reason.
That's why I like it.
Oh, cool. Right on. I've seen some posts, people have posted on Instagram and Facebook that they've painted the chia pet and they have it like a little statue.
That's
so maybe trying that.
Okay.
Do you have any favorite merch that you've seen?
The thing that I get the biggest kick out of, the merch is always funny, the chia pets, the cups, the greeting cards. But the thing that I get the biggest kick out of is I've seen people, they send flyers and things, they put on the Golden Girls as plays, sometimes in drag, sometimes not, different, incantations of incarnations of the show. And the fact that, these scripts are being performed in theaters 35 years later, and, they work as live theater. We didn't write it to last this long, and it's kind of flattering that it did, but it's an accident. We just wanted it to be meaningful and truthful and funny. And it's gratifying that so many years later, people perform these things as theater. And that, I think, is what I still get the biggest kick out of. That, and the fact that people watch the reruns and they're fans and they're still very excited about the show. It's a surprise. It's a good surprise. But when you live in that bubble, when you do these things to begin with, you just don't know.
Amazing. It's a lot of people are discovering and rediscovering the show. Some people are to brand new audiences, and I hear from them and they just rave about it.
It gets passed down, it gets passed down through the family. A mother will show it to one of her kids. This is what I used to watch when I was a kid, and that kid likes it. And, that's why it's been on so long, because it really hits all those generational spots. Everybody can find something in it that, they can laugh at or relate to.
Definitely. I want to show this one off. So there's a company called Prime Party, and they were amazing enough to send me some of their stuff. And it's cups, plates, napkins, crowns, pin the glasses on Sophia. It's like all party stuff for the Golden Girls. So if you guys want to be my best friends and come to my birthday party.
Definitely. I want to see more in the Sophia princess outfit.
Happy to slip one on. Be an honor.
Wow, that is all the questions that I have for you all. And I'm just so absolutely thrilled that I got to have this conversation with both of you. It's truly an honor.
Well, thanks. It's, it's fun for us to talk about it because it was such a, a magical time in our lives. So it was fun to do it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to reminisce about even the jokes and things we haven't thought about in a while. As we're sitting here talking, I start laughing about some of this stuff all over again.
You can rewatch every episode of The Golden Girls streaming now on Hulu. And make sure you follow D23 and The Golden Girls on Facebook and Instagram. Once you're on our Instagram, you'll find a link to the official merchandise. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today for this celebration. I want to wish you both a very happy 35th anniversary.
You're very welcome. It was great fun.
Bye, everybody.